Have you ever wondered who does what on a real estate transaction? I'm going to go over the 9 people that you're going to need to get you closed. I'm Shaheedah Hill, getting you over the hill to home ownership and helping you confidently buy your first home. We're going to go over the 9 people you may encounter in your real estate transaction, and we're going to discuss exactly what each person does. Let's get started with the agents. So if you're a buyer, you're probably going to have your own agent. That's the buyer's agent. So I'm going to say that's me. I would represent you. And then there'll be a listing agent that generally represents the seller. So we have a listing agent and we have a buyer's agent. Now, we can be brokers, but we don't have to be. This varies by state, but typically the difference between an agent and a broker is education and testing. So once, for example, in Georgia, in order to get your broker's license, you have to have your real estate license for at least 3 years and take a broker's exam. That's all there is to it. Now, you can still, and the difference also is that you have to be supervised. If you're not a broker, you have to be supervised by a broker. So that's the major difference. You want to know in your real estate transaction, is your agent still being supervised by a broker? At some of your larger agencies, RE/MAX, Century 21, EXP, those Keller Williams, typically if your agent is in one of those organizations, they're probably an agent being supervised by a broker. And what makes this important to you, if your agent at any time does something that you're not happy with, is questionable, they are again being supervised by their broker. So you can reach out to the broker and find out, if they can help the transaction or help you in any way, because that broker is responsible for them. Now, even if your agent is a broker, they still could be supervised by another broker if they're not independently working on their own. So just be mindful of if your agent is being supervised by a broker. Now let's go to the lending side. The majority of transactions involve financing. So as a buyer, you're probably going to have a lender that's going to be financing your loan, your mortgage. Now, that lender works with 2 other people primarily, a processor and underwriter. The lender is who pre-approves you for financing. And you'll have a lot of interaction with the lender until you go under contract. Once you're under contract, typically your lender takes your contract and they send it to the processor. And the processor makes sure everything's in line to go to the underwriter. And the underwriter is the person that's going to ultimately approve or deny your loan. You will never talk to the underwriter directly. You will either talk to the processor or your lender. So if the underwriter needs additional documentation, they have questions about something, they're going to communicate typically with the processor, and the processor is going to communicate with you. So these 3 people are essential to getting your loan approved. Now let's talk about the closing attorney or title company. Now it really depends on what state you're in if you have to close with an attorney or a title company. And typically the closing attorney does not represent you, they represent your lender because your house is collateral for the loan. Now a lot of clients may ask, do I need my own attorney to go over my documents? It's really up to you. Agents are not attorneys, but they're very familiar with the contracts and that sort of thing. But if you want an actual attorney, you can hire your own attorney, but there still will be an attorney that represents the lender to make sure that their collateral is properly documented. Okay. And they'll be transferring the funds between all the parties. So that closing attorney or title company makes sure that you have clear title to purchase the home. They will make sure if the seller still has a mortgage, that mortgage is paid off at closing. If they have any liens on their house, they'll make sure those liens are satisfied at closing. So this closing attorney is very important. Now, who pays the closing attorney? Although the closing attorney represents the lender in most cases, or the title company represents the lender, you pay the closing attorney fees, or you can negotiate with the seller as to who pays them. But typically, especially in a seller's market, the buyer is paying for the closing attorney. But in that case, you get to choose, in most cases, again, it's negotiable, but typically the buyer gets to choose what closing attorney they want to use. So that's what the closing attorney does. There are 3 additional people that are important to this transaction. One is the home inspector, the other one is the appraiser, and your insurance agent. So let's start with the home inspector. You hire and pay your home inspector. In most contracts, you will have a due diligence period that's going to allow you to have the home inspected. If something comes up during that home inspection that you and the seller cannot negotiate or agree on, typically during that period, you could terminate the transaction. You hire and you pay for the home inspector. I always recommend that you save enough money for at least 2 home inspections, because you don't get this money back. It's not refunded to you. It's kind of part of the cost to purchasing a home. The second person is your appraiser. The appraiser works for the lender and you, primarily the lender. The lender wants to know that the house is worth the money that they are lending you for the mortgage. So the appraiser is sent out by the lender to verify that this home price is appropriate for the amount of money that they're lending. Now, who pays the appraiser? You again. You pay the appraiser, and you'll get an appraisal report, and the lender will get the appraisal report just to make sure, again, that whatever the sales price of the home is actually worth that. Because God forbid they have to foreclose on you. They want to make sure that that asset that they're going to get back is worth what they lent you. Now, the last person is your insurance agent. Most companies are going to require you to have insurance, homeowner's insurance, on the home you're purchasing at closing. So you're going to want to get an insurance quote for the house, and you give that quote to your processor or to your lender, and they will send that to the underwriter, because the underwriter is going to put the cost of the insurance in with the mortgage payment to make sure you're not over your debt to income ratio by the insurance amount. So that insurance agent is important to get, or at least know who you plan on using as you get started in this home buying process. They can't do a quote until they know the home that you plan on purchasing. I hope this was helpful for you to know and navigate all of the people in your transaction. And of course, all transactions are different, so there may be more people involved, but these are the primary people you can expect in your home buying transaction. Please like and subscribe to my channel for new videos every week.